In this episode, I'm going to share the 3 reasons why we're getting in the way of our own healing and transforming, and why we're not living the life we want to be living. And I say we because I too find myself getting in my own way. And my intention is to share some of my explorations and to shine the light on these 3 things so that you can look at what you're doing from a different perspective, and so that you can maybe even shift your approach a little when it comes to how it is you're evolving as a human being. Now, at the end of this episode, I'll share the step-by-step process that can be applied so that you don't get in your own way when it comes to healing and transforming. Just joking. Although I will be sharing many different invitations and ways to explore, I will not be giving you a step-by-step process, because this is actually one of the things that's getting in our own way, right? How excited were you that I was going to give you a step-by-step process that you could apply to no longer get in your own way, right? How many other catchy catchphrases have attracted you and drawn you in? How many free worksheets have you downloaded? How many courses have you signed up for? How many books have you read? How many podcasts have you listened to? Because they tend to come across as if they have the answer, right? We spend so much time looking outside of ourselves for the answers. And I want to point out that it's not a bad thing to be downloading these worksheets and signing up for courses and reading the books and listening to the podcasts. It's actually really helpful to hear other people's perspectives. What I'm inviting you to pay attention to is how urgently are you seeking the how? How are you relating to this information that's out there in the world? Because there's a lot of information for us to inquire with, right? But are you going at it as, ooh, this is the answer. Give me the how-tos. Give me the steps. Tell me what to do. Now, this is really important to recognize, because when we go outside of ourselves for information, for the answers, chances are it's because we don't know how to listen to ourselves. So what I want to invite you to inquire into here is if you can relate to always looking for the how, always looking for the step-by-step process, always looking for the answers outside of you. I want to invite you to inquire into your own development, because how we grew up really influences our ability to listen to our own experiences. Ideally, when we grew up, we would go through these developmental stages where at first we are very codependent on our caregivers, right? We need them to survive, to keep us warm, to feed us, to support us in a healthy upbringing, right? To be there for us, to be the caregiver, to nurture us and provide for us, because we cannot provide on our own, right? We cannot take care of ourselves on our own. But as we develop, we move away from being so codependent on our caregivers, and we start to explore what it's like to find our independence, right? And it's in that development where we start to discover our yeses and nos. It's that place where we start to explore our boundaries and our edges, and we're like, ooh, I actually don't like that, or ooh, I really want that, I like that. We get to explore our own discoveries and what feels good for us. Now, sadly, it's quite common that a lot of people weren't actually supported through that time to be in the self-expression and the self-exploration and the self-discovery. Instead, they were told what they liked and didn't like, or they were told what to do and not do. They didn't get to find out on their own what was okay and what wasn't okay, with guidance along the way. So, if someone never had the opportunity to listen to their own impulses, to follow any little impulse or big impulse and play with these edges and, those good old strong no years that we have, right? If we didn't get to listen to what our own internal experiences were telling us, then we look outside of ourselves for advice or suggestions. Like, is this okay? Am I allowed to do this? Right? Tell me what to do. I don't know how to listen to my own experiences to find my way through this. And I see this happening all the time, even in the subtlest ways. I have a niece and nephew that are currently 7 and 9. And they are so comfortable in their own bodies and the ways they explore in nature. They'll climb up on features and they know the edges of where something is too high or too scary. And then I'll see other parents kind of holding kids' hands and telling them to stop and come down, and not necessarily exploring and finding their own sense of, oh, where's my balance edge? How do I recognize when something feels scary and listen to my own fear because I'm up too high and I need some help now, right? So giving children, for example, this is one of many examples, the opportunity to find their way through life while we're there to offer support when they're asking for it, when they need some guidance, when they need some coaching, when they can be supported with our wisdom instead of our fear. We have a very different upbringing. So I want to invite you to reflect on that, right? As a child, were you able to find your own edges? Were you able to explore and discover your own boundaries and what was okay and not okay for you? When you were younger, could you say yes and be supported in your yes? Could you say no and be supported in your no's? And if that's unfamiliar for you, no wonder you're busy looking outside of yourself to learn how to live life, because you never got to listen to your own inquiries and your own judgments, your own instincts, your own impulses, right? So I'm inviting you here to notice if you're someone who's caught up in the hows, tell me how, give me the steps. It's possible that you never really had the chance to find your own inquiry from within. Now, I want to point out that it's never too late to start to pay attention to your own explorations. It's never too late to become your own guide. Now, ideally, that's what we're working towards, right? Is to listen to ourselves, to learn to tune into our own impulses and recognize when they're rooted in trauma versus a genuine impulse. And when our intuition is speaking, how do we listen, right? And the more we're connected to ourselves, the easier it is to receive that information, to be clear on that information, and to follow and know what we need instead of someone outside of us telling what we need. Now, an easy way for you to explore this is start with your yeses and nos, and start in a simple way. Like, do I want to wear these shoes today or these other shoes? Which ones feel like a yes? What are you attracted to? And you don't need an explanation on why. It's just like, oh, I really want to wear these shoes. For whatever reason, I don't want to wear those shoes. This feels like a yes. That's you learning to listen to what feels right for you. You could do the same with food, right? Do I want to eat oatmeal for breakfast? No. Do I feel like an egg? Yeah. Oh, interesting. I'm having this impulse to eat an egg. Like my body is craving an egg, right? Now, this is where it can get interesting. Starting simple can be really great because it's just a clear way to recognize your yeses and your nos. But when we have things entangled around whatever we're making our decisions around, our yeses and nos aren't as clear. So for example, let's say I was always told what to eat. I was forced to always finish all my food. Even if I didn't like it, I had to force myself to eat it, right? And I've lost the ability to even know what I'm craving. Or when I crave something, it's more a distraction versus a nurturing craving coming from within. Right? So my relationship with food might be very different. So if I go and think about what I want to eat, it's not obvious to me because I never got to really choose. I just ate what I had to eat. Right? That's a one example of many of how things can be entangled in us not knowing what's a yes or a no. So start simple and start by recognizing just these simple yeses and nos. Do I want to walk to work this way or that way? Do I want to wear this shirt or that shirt, right? Like pick simple things that allow you to strengthen the knowing of your yes and what a yes feels like, how you know, and what a no feels like and how you know. The next reason why we get in our own way of our healing and transforming and why we're not living the life we want to be living is because we are trying so hard to be something other than what we are. We are often in so much conflict with ourselves. And this is because we want to be something, right? I want to be free and move through life, feeling happy and connected with others. Yet another part of me is scared big time of being in social gatherings, right? So although I want something, I want to be this, and I'm going to try all the things so that I can be this, something else within us is like, hell no, I am not going to be social and happy and engaging here because deep down I'm extremely frightened and scared and just want to hide. So we are filled with all kinds of conflicting experiences. And how I like to see it is we usually have a part of us that is in fear or shut down and disconnected. But it wants to protect us. It wants to manage and control things so that we're okay, or it wants to distract us. But its job is to really keep us protected from the world, to keep us isolated, to keep us small, to keep us hidden, or it could be even that we are presenting like we've got it all together, but really we feel alone, right? These places where we are protecting ourselves and managing and control things and distracting ourselves is often where we have trauma, where we're stuck in time, where we're stuck somewhere in the threat response cycle. This is something I refer to in my earlier episodes, episode 2 and 3. I talk a lot about this. And right where we're stuck in time and stuck in these experiences, we then have our present day experience that is trying so hard to be something else, right? So we have conflict. There's something within us that is determined to keep us, air quotes, safe, to make sure we don't move towards anything that's threatening, while another part of us is trying so hard to live life and show up and with these gifts that we have to offer, or show up and be in connection and be in relationship and deep, meaningful love, right? But we can't because we're so afraid. So what I'm inviting you to notice is, how many things do you do in your day-to-day that you're trying to be something that you're not, where you're really trying to live a life when another part of you is stuck telling you something else is true? So the reason why this can be important to recognize is we can often have these two conflicting experiences, or often many conflicting experiences, pulling us in all these different directions. And when all these different experiences we're having are pulling us in different directions, they're in conflict with each other, and then nothing is going to change. The more we can see the many different layers that are at play, the more we can see the many different patterns that are at play, the conflicting experiences that are at play, the more we're able to pan out, see the bigger picture, and understand like, oh, no wonder I struggle going out in big social settings. No wonder I want to stay home by myself, isolated and keep to myself. I don't really want to be seen. I don't want to be in that vulnerable experience. Yet something else is like, no, we've got to get over this. I want to go. I got to push myself. I got to try more, try harder, right? It's like, oh, wait, this thing that doesn't want to go, it's understandable it doesn't want to go. Its perception of life is that the world is scary, and it makes sense that it doesn't want to go. And of course, it makes sense that I also want to go and push my edges and get uncomfortable and play with the edges of my vulnerability. But how can I see that both experiences exist? The more we can see that both or many experiences exist at one time, the more we can, again, pan out and hold space for all these different experiences that are at play at once, while diving into the depths of why we're stuck in these survival patterns, while also playing with the edges of challenging ourselves to play within those edges of the vulnerability without undermining the parts of us that really are scared, are really challenged by these fearful beliefs that lie deep and deep, deep within ourselves. So see if you can map yourself out a little bit more. See these conflicting experiences and how you may be getting in your way because you're trying to do something when another part of you is so determined not to do the thing that you're trying to do, because its perception is if you do the thing, you are going to die or be ostracized or be abandoned, right? There's many core reasons why these parts that are stuck in time trying to protect us, manage us, control things, distract us, why they do what they do. So the more we can explore that, the more we're in less conflict. And this is the main premise of how I work, is we get to know the many different layers that are at play. We get to explore these parts of us that are stuck in time, stuck believing that something threatening is still happening, while also supporting these other parts of us that want to evolve and want to show up in the world in the way we know we can show up in the world, but we're just limited because we're in conflict with ourselves. Now, the last reason that I'll talk about today, because of course there's many reasons on why we get in our own way of our healing and transforming and why we're not living the life we want to be living. And the last piece I want to dive into here is that we're lacking the ability to be with what is. Now, what do I mean by that? So often when I ask people what they're experiencing relative to whatever topic we're talking about, they often reflect on what they were experiencing at the time. Well, when I'm in that situation, this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens. Now, what's really cool is only a part of our brain has a sense of time. So when we reflect on things, we actually have an experience in the moment. And this is one of the main ways I work. There's a lot of exploration I'll guide people through by reflecting on things, because when we're in the middle of things, it's a lot harder because life is changing and then coming at us and it's challenging to navigate it all. So we resort on our patterns. But when we reflect, we are able to slow things down and we're able to pay attention to what we're experiencing relative to what we're reflecting on. Now, when we notice what we're experiencing, it's in this moment. Our body is giving us information through a memory, through a reflection. It becomes alive within ourselves. So it allows us to explore in a way where we can really move slowly and play with teasing apart the threads and seeing all the many layers that are at play without being at too much of a threat. Although sometimes it does still feel like, nope, way too much. I'm going to die if I explore this. Nope, I'm not even going anywhere close to this. But where we're often challenged is we don't know how to pay attention to ourselves. We're not taught how to be with our experiences. We're not taught how to be present and be with what is. We're so caught up in the idea of what is or the idea of what could be that we aren't able to pay attention to ourselves. Now, there's a number of reasons why we're not able to pay attention to what's happening in the moment. And one of them is really important to acknowledge. Sometimes paying attention to our experience is too much, right? If we went through some major trauma and we're still stuck believing those threats are happening, asking someone to go inward, asking someone to pay attention to their experience is like, hell no. That's way too much. I don't want to feel the intensity of what I was feeling then. I don't want to feel this extreme terror that lives within me. So we keep our attention outside. We don't go inward because it feels like way too much. So if you're someone who, you're told, pay more attention to your experience, and you're like, but I can't, I don't know how, I don't know what you're talking about, chances are you're shut down from experiencing yourself because your system, a part of you, perceives that it's too much, perceives that something is still happening, and the system's intention is like, distract you from feeling that at all costs. Let's shut you down. Let's make sure you don't feel a thing. So when you notice that, you're still experiencing something. You're experiencing that paying attention to your own experiences is too much. And what's it like to pause and just notice that? Wow, your body is so wise and so brilliant for making sure you don't feel the intensity of what's going on in the inside. And this is where things get so exciting. And I mean, this is how I work, and this is why I love what I do. The cells within our body all carry stories, and the more we learn to slowly move towards paying attention to ourselves, we'll find the parts of us that actually feel okay, that don't feel like they experience terror or extreme pain or panic, right? There's parts of us that feel very present and feel very here. So even right now as I'm talking, you can do a little scan and just notice, is there anything you experience that doesn't feel like it's at threat or disconnected or numb? Maybe it's your little toe. Maybe if you pay attention to your little toe, there's this sense of like, oh, I have a little toe, and paying attention to it is okay. For some of you, you might be all right with paying attention to your experience, and then you can go a little deeper and start to scan your body and notice what feels like there's a rhythm or a pulsation or flow or movement or coherence, right? Where within you do you notice this experience? So often we're attracted to what's wrong, to what's not working, to where there's pain, to where there's panic, to where there's terror, to where there's a sensation, right? And there's so much more for us to pay attention to. And the more we recognize that every single cell has a story to tell, the more we recognize how many different conflicting experiences may exist, but also the more we realize that, wait, there's so much happening here. And the more I can support myself by tuning into the many stories that lie within my cells, the more I can support what is stuck in time, stuck in survival, to be moved through so that there's more of me here, connected into my sense of wholeness, and there's more of me living in this coherent state. Instead of living life stuck in time, stuck in these patterns, not able to be in this present moment, we start to find what is able to be here and in this present moment. So to start, a way is to just notice what part of you feels more alive, what part of you feels more fluid, more coherent. For me, it's my left side. My left side feels more fluid and alive, and like there's this rhythm there, whereas my right side feels constricted and stuck. And I have a part of me that so badly wants this right side to be different, right? There's my conflict. I want the right side to be different, and I'm so determined to fix it. Whereas this right side is like, no way. I have to be protective. I have to be on guard. I have to be on alert. I have to be in anticipation. So instead of the conflict, I get to just pause and notice, okay, the left side feels fluid. This is what is in this moment, my experience. And the right side, like if you're watching the video, you might see my right arm is stuck to my side. My right eye, I don't have as clear a vision in. My right face feels a little droopy. And if I follow this is an ongoing exploration I'm doing around my contrast in between right and left and even the space in between. But I can get caught up in the conflict of trying to fix it, or I can pause and be in the moment of it and explore what wants to happen from here. Now, let's come back to these how-tos, right? I've given you a number of ways that you can explore these 3 different things, but my biggest invitation to you in the how-tos is learn to simply pause and notice what is. It's from pausing and noticing what is that we deepen our awareness of ourselves. We're not going into the outside world to tell us what it is we're experiencing. We're deepening the awareness of our own experiences from within. From there, we can explore through curiosity, and that's a lot of what my programs are rooted in, is the pausing and noticing, the deepening of the awareness, and then weaving in this curiosity. without coming at it from this place where I've got an agenda, I've got to fix it, I need to change it, because then I'm back in conflict with myself, right? And instead, I'm coming at it from this place of recognizing I'm already whole. And from this place of wholeness, from this place of coherence, I can support the parts of me that are stuck in time, that are stuck in survival, that are disorganized, that are shut down, to move towards more organization, to move towards shifting out of the trauma that we're stuck in, to move towards this more whole sovereign being that we all are. So the more we put our attention on this experience of being whole, where we're not in conflict with ourselves, where we're not looking outside of ourselves for the answers, where we're not, caught up in what we think we should be doing or what we should be experiencing, and we instead stay with what is, the more we deepen our awareness and start to transform with a lot more ease. So it's not a step-by-step process, but there's some principles that you can apply to allow the journey into the unraveling and the piecing together that happens as we shift whatever it is we're still stuck in. So those are my how-tos. They're less how-tos and more an ongoing practice. The practice of pausing and noticing, bringing in awareness and curiosity, recognizing that there's nothing to fix, that we're already whole, and supporting our explorations from this place allows us to really shift out of getting in our own way, and allows us to have more grace for being human, and it allows us to evolve as human beings in the way we're meant to evolve, which is through our own intuition, by listening to our own body, our own deep wisdom, and to allow ourselves to be guided in connection to what is tapped into when we land more in this place of feeling that we are whole, that we are sovereign, and that we can trust our own intuition, even when at a very young age it was shut down. So hopefully this shines the light on some things. I encourage you just to take a nugget or two and play with integrating it into your daily explorations. If you want some guidance, I encourage you to download my free experiential guide. I also have programs that I offer, and I'd love to explore with you. So feel free to share any insights, ask any questions, and I'm excited for you to deepen your own understanding of yourself, to find your own perspective of what it means to be human, and for you to continue to walk the path. Being human is complicated. We're all here. Let's do it together in some way. And I look forward to seeing where it all takes you. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that this episode has provided you with new perspectives and insights. And if you haven't already, head to my website to download the experiential guide. Until the next time, I invite you to continue to pause and notice.